Really, all praises for love, praise and peace be upon His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At this time, we're going to hear from Sheikh Yusuf in his response to the questions that you have offered. As you can see, he is going through them very diligently. Even though he's tearing them up, don't think he's just disregarding the questions. He's actually consolidating the questions and putting them in a manner where he can respond to them. There's quite a volume of questions, and I'm not sure that he's going to be able to get to all of them tonight. However, we would like to encourage you to visit his website. That's todayislam.com. And if there are any questions that you have that are not answered tonight, he will gladly answer them for you on the internet, inshallah ta'ala. I'd like to share with you an experience that I had on one of his visits to our prisons in South Carolina. We have approximately 22,000 inmates in the South Carolina Department of Corrections, of which about 5% of them are Muslim, roughly 1,000 Muslims spread out throughout 29 correctional facilities, which I have to service throughout the state. And on one of his visits, he encouraged the men in the particular facility to tell their families about the website. And you know, if you know anything about corrections and inmates, inmate mentality is something that's very, very delicate, very guarded, to say the least. So he encouraged the inmates to tell their families to go to the website and pull up some information off of the website and print it, but don't read it. And can you imagine an inmate in a prison telling his family member to go to the website, print some information, but don't read it? What are they going to do? Read it. One young man told his sister to do that. She read the information. She went to the mosque in Charlotte, North Carolina, and she became a Muslim. She took her declaration of faith. Alhamdulillah. So I hope that you will get, I know you get your time worthwhile answered in a question that he will be answering. So without any further ado, you know, this is the only man that I've ever met who has elevated pizza to another level. He's ever elevated pizza to another level. When he's around the youth, he'll ask them, "What's brain food?" And they look at each other.
It's peanut butter material.
and they'll look at each other like, "Brain food? What's brain food?" But you know, if you go to any college campus today, and you see them staying up late at night studying, cramming, you know, for the exams, and they eat this food that comes in a big box that comes to them on wheels. And so it must be brain food.
You didn't tell us how you said. All right, he got half of it, but he didn't get all of it. The whole idea behind bringing this up is not just to talk about brain food. And so, because I work with children who are descendants of Arabs many times in the United States, and the children are very Americanized, if you will, and they don't really speak very much Arabic. So the Arabic language is very powerful and has a lot of things, but there's two things that the Arabic language doesn't have. The letter V is in Volkswagen, and the letter P as in Pakistan. So whenever I tell the story of the pizza, I say, "Now would you like me to teach you how to say brain food in Arabic?" They say, "Yeah, pizza." It goes good with Bibsy. And when the man delivers it, he barks the car and comes in with it. I can't believe you stole my material, man. I'm going to let it slide because you had a long day today. Inshallah, God willing, we're going to try to answer 12 questions. The majority of the questions that came were very similar, so what I did, I took the opportunity to compile them down. Then any of the questions which deal with issues that are for Muslims to ask their scholars, I defer that to a scholar. We do have our own sheikh with us, and if anybody has any questions, Muslim questions for a scholar, he's sitting right over there, they can ask him. Okay? because that's not my job. My job is not to talk to you in Arabic language, and my job is not to tell you what we call Islamic ruling or fatwa. That's not my job. And I'm dealing only with the questions relative to the topic we had tonight. So if you had questions not relative, then you can present them to him, and he'll be happy through translation, if you need it, to give you any answers you would like, God willing. Okay, let's begin. And I wanted statistical information about Islam. How many Muslims are in the USA? And actually, I had to ask my sheikh, how many was that?
Between 6 and 10 million.
He said between 6 and 10 million. Then they asked how many mosques are in the United States. About 1,200, with more being built every day. I would like to mention this. You didn't ask this question, but my colleague and I can testify to this without any hesitation or reservation to tell you that without doubt, while we had our program tonight, I'm sure a lot more people in America became Muslim. Because even in his one state of South Carolina, there are literally thousands who have come into Islam. And in my state, which is, I live in Northern Virginia, right by Washington, D.C., we also see many hundreds. I've given what we call Shahada to so many that I lost the count years ago. Many people are entering Islam in America and in other countries. But you might also like to know, who are these people? Many of them are African Americans. But there are other ethnic groups as well. From the white Americans, they don't have a lot of knowledge of it, and it wasn't until September 11th that we started to go on their pilgrimage to Jerusalem. They tried, and these are good people. We should give them credit for what they're trying to do. But in Islam, it's very clear that if a person leaves any of the 5 points that I mentioned, they're leaving Islam. So for the benefit of the Muslims who thought they could just say, I love Allah, and Allah loves me, Allah answered them, and this is for the Muslims. I'll tell you what the Quran said. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قل إن كنتم توهبون الله فاتبعوني يحببكم الله. Tell them, if they say I love Allah, tell them then follow me, meaning the Prophet. And then and only then Allah will love them and forgive their sins. So this is very important for us to know that Islam requires more than belief. You have to work every day. So that's to give a little overall. If somebody wanted me to do comparative religion, that's as far as I'll go. The next thing it asks, they ask the question, how can I get a copy of the Holy Quran? And I appreciate that, and I wish I could tell you how easy it is to do it in the States. But here it's more complicated. Your effort won't be that much harder, but our effort will be. You go to our website, Today Islam, and look on the page, it says Free Quran. At the top of the page, look for Free Quran, and then click on that link and send us email. I have no idea how long it's going to take to send it, because it's going to have to come, what they call over the water. What do they call that kind of shipping? Huh?
Ocean freight.
Ocean freight? Snail mail. Oh, that's right, I forgot about that. Muhammad Khatib, who is the president of the Muslim Association here, Islamic Association, we made an agreement with him to send a whole case. That I didn't even tell him how many we were going to send yet. I just told him we were going to send them. But he should have those whenever the snail mail gets here. And how long do you think it will take?
Take about 1 month.
1 month?
Yes.
So at that time, what I'd like for you to do right now before you leave tonight, write your name, your telephone number, and your address on a piece of paper. Because I forgot to say that in the talk, that we do provide free Qurans. We send them all over the world. It asked me the question why I changed to Islam. This story is on the internet itself. It's 16 pages or something when you print out the whole thing. Obviously, you don't want me to use the rest of the night just to talk about that. So I'm going to tell you, go to the Today Islam website and read the story, print it out, and read it for yourself. Bottom line is, I never felt like that I really left Christianity. I felt like I became a better Christian because I learned who Jesus really was and what his message was, and I'm worshiping the God that Jesus worshipped. I'm sorry that's a short answer, but if you'll go read it, it gives the whole story, how I came to Islam, how a Catholic priest came to Islam with us, and my wife and my father, about about 1/4, maybe more, of my family came to Islam, and the others stayed Christian. Because we come from a family that's been Christian since before there was recorded history in our family. So we built churches in America and in England, so, they're not all ready to just walk away yet. But maybe they will. I'm not trying to be smart aleck with anybody, okay? But I'm going to tell you, the Quran means that which is recited. It is not a book. If somebody has a book, it has a representation of Quran, that is not Quran. Explanation: if you have a dollar bill in your pocket, it says $1. But you have another dollar bill that says $100. Are they worth exactly the same, yes or no? No. Yes, they are. The paper is the same, the ink is the same, the difference is the value people gave it, right? Right or wrong? So the money only represents something to the people, but it's not the real wealth. The wealth is somewhere else. The gold, the silver, or whatever backs up that dollar is somewhere else. The Quran is not here, it's somewhere else. It's with Allah. When you recite it and say it, you're saying it, you're representing it. Some of us, we recite it with a better voice than others. And some of us make more mistakes than others. Just bring it. And what you will bring me is a translation of the Bible in a language. But if I ask you to please, I brought the original Quran, could you please bring the original Bible? And the answer is you can't. And that's why so many Catholic priests have become Muslim. Because they realized, wait a minute, what am I doing? What am I saying? Because it's the same message. It's not different. But there is a difference in who controls everything. There is no church in Islam that pays money to a bigger church that pays money to a bigger church. There is no such thing in Islam. The money that I told you that the wealthy have to pay has to be given to the poor and the orphans. There's no such thing as a big, huge place collecting up billions and billions of dollars in Islam. Never was, never will be. So wealth is a big, important thing to human beings, but it means nothing to God. He doesn't need your money. So the true religion of God says what? Give your charity to the people that need it. And so that's what we do. Just open up your heart. Like our brother said when we started, make your heart like a parachute. Because that's the only way it's going to do any good, is if it's open. Open yourself to this message. I did. And think about it. They're looking at everybody else, trying to decide what they are. Don't blame Islam for what Muslims do. That answers your question about terrorism, doesn't it? Don't blame a religion for what people do. How many of you heard of Oklahoma City? Anybody ever heard of a place called Oklahoma City? Okay, there was a federal building that blew up there in 1996. Immediately they said Muslims did it, and they were dressed in Arab garb, and they were heading for Mexico. Now that's 1,500 miles away. How'd they know they're going to Mexico? But guess what? It wasn't a Muslim. It was a man by the name of Timothy McVeigh. How many of you know what his religion was? He was Catholic. And nobody made the Pope write an excuse for him either. And I don't blame the Catholic Church for what he did. Do you? He did it on his own, didn't he? Nobody went and looked in the Bible and said, where did he get that from, did they? Duh. Which religion is correct? Jewish, Christian, or Islam? I don't know. I blame myself for this because it means I didn't make a very good presentation for you. I just got through telling you that there's no religion going to be acceptable to God except the one that He sent. That's what Islam means.
History was made last Tuesday when Democrat Keith Ellison got elected to Congress representing the great state of Minnesota. Well, not really unusual that Minnesota would elect a Democrat. What is noteworthy is that Keith is the first Muslim in history to be elected to the House of Representatives. He joins us now. Congratulations, sir.
How you doing, Glenn? Glad to be here.
Thank you. I will tell you, may we have 5 minutes here where we're just politically incorrect and I play the cards face up on the table?
Go there.
Okay. No offense, and I know Muslims, I like Muslims, I've been to mosques. I really don't believe that Islam is a religion of evil. I think it's being hijacked, quite frankly. With that being said, you are a Democrat, you are saying, let's cut and run, and I have to tell you, I have been nervous about this interview with you because what I feel like saying is, sir, prove to me that you are not working with our enemies. And I know you're not. I'm not accusing you of being an enemy, but that's the way I feel, and I think a lot of Americans will feel that way.
Well, let me tell you, the people of the 5th Congressional District know that I have a deep love and affection for my country. There's no one who's more patriotic than I am. And so, I don't need to prove my patriotic stripes.
And I'm not asking you to. I'm wondering if you see that. You come from a district that is heavily immigrant with Somalians, and I think it's wonderful. Honestly, I think it is really a good sign that you could be an icon to show Europe. This is the way you integrate into a country. I think the Somalians coming out and voting is a very good thing. With that being,
I'd agree with you.
Notable snapshot from the power shift in the Congress. Senator and Democratic presidential prospect Hillary Rodham Clinton was sworn in for a second term today by the Vice President Dick Cheney. At her side, her husband, the former President of the United States, Bill Clinton. Among the new lawmakers sworn in today, the first Muslim ever elected to the United States Congress. And at his private ceremony, Democrat Keith Ellison of Minnesota took his oath on the Quran, a move that's sparking some controversy. Let's bring in CNN's Jill Doherty. She's here in the Situation Room with the story. Jill?
Hey, Wolf. Well, Thomas Jefferson had one. He owned it. He studied it. So why can't a new U.S. congressman be sworn into office with his hand on one? Well, when that book is a Quran, there's no easy answer.
It's a tradition that goes all the way back to George Washington, first president of the United States.
Please raise your right hand.
Elected officials taking the oath of office with their hand on a holy book. It's not a legal requirement, it's just a symbol. They swear to protect and defend the U.S. Constitution, not religious principles. Christians often use the Bible, Jews the Old Testament. Some don't use anything. Keith Ellison, the very first Muslim elected to the U.S. Congress, chose the Quran, the sacred text of Islam, an 18th century copy from the Library of Congress that once belonged to Thomas Jefferson. Ellison's choice of the Quran has some critics fuming, including one of his fellow congressmen.
My personal belief is not to use the Quran.
Congressman Virgil Goode says the U.S. should protect what he calls its traditional values.
I fear that in the next century we will have many more Muslims in the United States if we do not adopt strict immigration policies.
Other colleagues of Ellison say they're outraged by such comments. On his first day in Congress, Ellison shook Virgil Goode's hand, saying he was trying to build bridges.
Virginia Congressman Virgil Goode is warning a soon-to-be colleague, Minnesota's Keith Ellison, not to use the Quran at a swearing-in ceremony. And Goode says he wants to keep other Muslims out of the United States. Will Goode stick to his guns? Democratic Congressman-elect Keith Ellison of Minnesota, a Muslim, touched off controversy recently when he indicated he'd include the Quran as part of his swearing-in ceremony next month. Republican Congressman Virgil Goode of Virginia has done his best to add to the controversy now, calling for immigration policies that would keep Muslims out of this country. Let's get the latest now from CNN's Brian Todd. He's joining us live. from Rocky Mount, Virginia. Brian?
Wolf, we're expecting to hear any moment now from Congressman Virgil Goode, the Republican from this district in Southern Virginia. Up to this moment, he has stood by, at least through his aides, stood by comments that he made in a letter to a constituent a couple of weeks back, where he really slammed the request by incoming Congressman Keith Ellison, the first Muslim elected to Congress. That request by Mr. Ellison to use the Quran in his swearing in. Mr. Goode has generated, as you say, a lot of controversy over that particular letter.
Happening now, a Quran controversy and a growing war of words. A Republican congressman is refusing to back down from remarks about Muslims many people are saying are simply offensive. And more lawmakers are now weighing in on plans by one congressman-elect to take his oath on Islam's holy book. Controversy growing over the use of the Quran for a congressional swearing in, and one lawmaker, Virginia Republican Virgil Goode, coming under fire for remarks that many people are saying are personally very offensive. At issue, plans by Muslim Democratic Congressman-elect Keith Ellison of Minnesota to take the oath of office on the Quran in his private ceremony. Now other lawmakers are weighing in.
Wolf, we came down to this small town today to see if Representative Goode could clarify any of his recent remarks that have stirred up so much controversy. Well, he certainly did clarify them. He's not only unrepentant, he's outright defiant.
I'm great, and I'm no great defender of the Quran, but I'm not sure why America is imperiled by Keith Ellison's taking the oath on it. Why is it?
It's not imperiled by his taking the oath on it. It's imperiled by substituting the Bible for the first time since George Washington had a Bible at his inauguration. The issue was not the oath. First of all, he will have already taken the oath with all other congressmen. This is a photo op, but it's a very important photo op. It's the statement of the congressman of what is most important to him and to America. I have no problem with his having the Quran. I have a problem with his, for the first time in American history, substituting one religious text for another. If he had the Quran and a Bible, as one Muslim ambassador did about 10 years ago, I think it was the ambassador to the Fiji Islands, I don't recall exactly, that I wouldn't have ever written the column. But this is a big deal to say, I am ending this tradition that was started by George Washington in favor of another text. The question is not what he believes in. That's right. One question. The question is, what is the central text of the American value system? That's why I think this is important. Otherwise, I couldn't care less. If it had been the Bhagavad Gita, or it had been anything else, or it had been a Scientologist work of Dianetics, I would have said the same thing. The Quran is not my issue. It's substituting something for the Bible for the first time in American history.
Well, the central text of American life is the Constitution.
No, that's not true. That's the central legal document. We had a United States of America for 9 years prior to a Constitution.
Right.
Did we not have values then? Did we not have laws?
I think we did, but I think that the people who founded the country used those 9 years to think through what this country is and what ideas ought to govern it, and they came up with the Constitution. And that document specifies, and it's hard for me to believe I'm defending the Quran here, but that document says really clearly, no religious test will ever be required for holding office. And it seems to me you're implying, you're holding up a religious test.
Not implying it whatsoever. I want people of every faith to run for office.
Huh. This is getting very deep, and you're losing me a little bit. It may be a function of my limited IQ. Boil it down for me to a political level here. Should Keith Ellison not be allowed to take office, or what should we do about this?
No, we should pressure him into doing the great thing to unify Americans and bring the Bible along with the Quran. That's not exactly a terrible demand. It doesn't in any way compromise his Islamic faith. It says that he is saying to the American people, look, I am part of you. I don't want to demolish the tradition that has been unbroken since George Washington. I don't think that's too much to ask of Keith Ellison.
Here we have a Jew pushing a Muslim to use the Christian Bible. That's correct. America. Thanks a lot. Dennis, I appreciate it.
It is America. You're quite right.
This is a personal choice issue and a ceremonial swearing in, but you wrote in your piece that he'll be doing more damage to the unity of America by using the Quran and to the value system that has formed this country than the terrorists of 9/11. Do you really believe that that's more dangerous than what the terrorists did on 9/11?
No, it's not more dangerous to my health. It's not more dangerous to my ability to walk the streets or fly in an airplane, but it's more dangerous what I wrote, to the unity of the American people. 9/11 did not disunite the American people. It united the American people. So I wrote carefully those words. And yes, it will do that, Alan. The ceremony is in fact the important part. Remember, there have been congressmen and congresswomen of all different faiths. Mormons do not use the Book of Mormon. Secularists do not use the collected works of Voltaire or whatever secular text they want to use. Many people for whom the Bible is not their personal great religious source have used the Bible because they are all saying this book is the book from which America gets its values in the final analysis.
FDR was not sworn in using a Bible. William Weld, when he was governor of Massachusetts,
I don't know who told you this. The only president who did not have a Bible was Theodore Roosevelt's first term, and it was because McKinley had just been shot.
Well,
every president used a Bible.
I'm quoting a Boston Globe story from 1991 when he was actually sworn in, and William Weld is, I'm sorry, the Library of Congress. That was my source for that. But according to the Boston Globe, William Weld in 1991, when he was sworn in, also did not use the Bible. I didn't hear any outrage or outcry. This is because it's the Quran.
Wait a minute. No, it's not true. If it had been a Scientologist using Dianetics, or it had been a Buddhist using some of the works of the Buddha, I would have had the exact same reaction.
What if it was an atheist? Did someone swear on a book that that person does not believe in?
Yes, because you are swearing on the book the society believes in. We are in the age of narcissism, which all that matters is what do I care to be valuable. I care what America cares to be valuable. I am a Jew. If I were elected, I would use the Bible, even though the New Testament is specifically Christian and the Old Testament is for both.
Let me get Malik in here. I don't personally think the government should be able to dictate what any one person uses in terms of a religious book. That would be an establishment issue, as outlined by the First Amendment, Mr. Shabazz.
If the congressman has freedom of religion and his constitutional rights, he should be able to use the book of his choice. Fact check. Presidents Pierce, Hayes, Franklin Roosevelt, and Lyndon B. Johnson used no book. And I'm sure the congressman, as all Muslims do, I didn't interrupt you.
You're right.
All Muslims respect the Bible, but he should have the opportunity. Now, your ignorance, Mr. Prater, Islam has contributed a lot to America. In the middle of the Supreme Court is, in the rotunda, is a statue or bust of the Prophet Muhammad, showing the respect that American law and jurisprudence has for the revealer of the Quran. Many of American presidents are Masons and Shriners who got to the 33rd degree and studied the Quran in secret and have the star and the crescent on their fez. So Islam is at the basis of Western and American civilization.